Just to the southeast of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, lies the suburb of Mawaki. Founded in 1839, the name means Place of the Bears. And while the bears are long gone, some elements of the past remain. However, our main interest is in the Garden Railroad of Russ and Barb Larson. Russ's interest in railroading was really kindled when he found himself with a career in the hobby industry at Model Railroader magazine.
Shortly after I joined the staff, I think it was 1972, I got a chance to go to the Nuremberg Toy Fair in Germany. And I was introduced to the folks from LGB and was fortunate to get a tour of their showroom and their factory. And initially their big trains were all European, mostly German meter gauge. But in 1985, they introduced a mogul, a Denver, South Park and Pacific mogul to the U.S. market, followed by freight cars and passenger cars and a whole line of equipment for the narrow gauge market here. And I just fell in love with that first engine.
Once Russ retired in 2004, he found that he had more time to devote to his hobby.
We moved here 15 years ago, and when we were looking for a house, we had a number of factors we were looking for. One of them was a nice private backyard.
The trains needed to be all-weather due to the harsh Midwest climate, so Russ picked what he considered the high-end, LGB.
When I started, that was the only thing you could buy. But as other companies came into the market, LGB was still the best quality, I thought, and very reliable. I mean, you can run these things and run them, and maybe all you have to do eventually is replace the brushes. So they're excellent quality. The track is all LGB. It's track and turnouts, and it's been out here, most of it's been out here for 10, 11 years. The turnouts still work, and they've been out. They stay out here all year round. Even in the winter, they're covered with snow.
Russ isn't alone with his railroad. His wife Barb has a major role in this operation.
I do a lot of the decisions on what to plant where and what type of trees and how I'm going to trim them. I like to put up the little vignettes that our little scenes have. The trees are dwarf junipers, and if you let them go on their own, they can get up to, 10 feet high or whatever. So I have to keep them trimmed back all the time to keep them in scale. We have Korean hornbeams too that were from a bonsai forest. They're quite nice, different from the evergreen type.
Drawing on past experience, Russ had some specific ideas in mind for this railroad.
One of the design criteria was to keep it simple. We knew that if you get it too complicated, you just have problems, so we wanted it to run reliably.
As a theme for the railroad, Russ chose Colorado narrow gauge in the 1940s.
We pretty much started on the west end and worked east. When we got to the center here, we had a little delay because of the crossing, and there were no 45-degree crossing available, so I had to stretch build one. We needed a fast-moving stream because you see a lot of that in Colorado, in the mountains.
The railroad is all battery powered.
The trains are all powered by onboard batteries, controlled by radio control throttles. The product is a CVP air wire, it's called. And the batteries we're using now are lithium-ion batteries, 14.8 volts. The challenge is fitting them in to some of the steam engines into the tenders. I prefer not to use a trailing car if I can help it. One of our engines has a battery, the sound module, speaker, and the radio control receiver. It's pretty tight fit in that tender.
Let's take a closer look at the Pagosa Springs and Northern Railroad.
We'll start at the mining town of Pagosa Springs. We have a business district with a saloon and a hardware store and a hotel. Then we go around to over to some houses and a little farm. Then as you progress down the layout, there are some cabins along the river and some boats, and then we go through a big tunnel, come around to the yard area, where we have a coaling facility, a water tower, and sand, and a yard. Then we come by the cattle pens, go through another tunnel, and come back around to the town again.
Water features are an important part of any garden layout.
We have two waterfalls on the layout, a small one on the east end and the large one on the west end. The water is recycled with two pumps, one for each waterfall, and they both flow into a pond where we have koi and goldfish.
Both Barb and Russ have some favorite spots along the right-of-way.
Well, one of my favorites is the cemetery, and we get a lot of comment on the cemetery from visitors. So. And it just so happens that one of the headstones has the name of a friend of ours on it.
I love what we've done by the town center. We have a bluegrass band up on top of the hotel roof. There's people enjoying their music, and there's a little scene set up where there's a bake sale going on. There's all kinds of activities in this particular area. We have a sound system in the saloon with a honky-tonk piano going, and all kinds of people there. And then we have another one that I really love is the family, that the father is just getting home from work and he's bending down to pick up the little child that's come out to say hi, Dad. I love that one. We have a wonderful dock set up. It's by Pico, and it's down by the river going into the pond. We have 4 cabins that I was able to construct from scratch. They have individual wood shingles that I assembled on the roofs. Chimneys are individual stones that you put on, and they're quite realistic. When Russ wanted to build a stock pen, I said, okay, we have to have Herefords in it, getting ready to be shipped off. And so Russ made models from a cow that we had, and he made all of these cows in the pen.
Nighttime is one of the periods that Russ likes best about the railroad.
All the buildings have lights in them. The passenger train has lights. The cabooses are lit up for night running. And we have lights in the pond and in the stream. So it's kind of a magical place at night with the trains running.
Barb and Russ have quite a few buildings on the layout.
The layout has about 45 structures. The first ones we purchased back when Polo was in business are still being used. I scratch build when I have to.
To keep from having to constantly place the trains, Russ built indoor storage.
After each operating session, we run the trains into the house where we have a storage yard. We have a 2-piece bridge that spans the gap between a pet door in the wall of the house and the layout.
Barb is almost as enthusiastic about the garden layout as her husband.
I would travel with him to conventions. I was taken by the beauty and the variety and the camaraderie of the husband and wife teams, and it was just a wholesome atmosphere.
Railroads are constantly evolving, and Russ's is no exception.
We have plans for 2 more sidings. I would like to be able to operate the turnouts from the throttles as I walk along with the trains. And I have all the circuitry necessary to do that, but I just have to install it, which I plan to do next summer.
Russ and Barb Larson have had a great deal of fun in creating their backyard empire. They have created a wonderful tribute to Colorado narrow gauge railroading, and we are happy to have been able to share in their passion.